Hi, and welcome to Blueprint Career Development's TAE program. My name is Paul, and I'm going to take you through the introduction to design. So in this presentation, we're going to cover all the reasons why we train. And this includes things like why we do the training, who is it for, who the key stakeholders are, industry consultation, design considerations, expected outcomes. We're also going to cover contractual arrangements, risk management, and the documentation involved. And that includes things like training and assessment strategies. So the purpose of training. So it's essential to understand the intended purpose of training because this is going to have a big influence on your delivery and assessment methods. So we need to look at the topics that need to be included to achieve the expected outcome. So this will depend on the participant experience levels and could include things like the range and the depth of the content we need to include. What's the best delivery method? This could be influenced by the audience skills as well as venue and timeframes. What assessment methods to use, if any? This will depend on whether it's a qualification or maybe just a skill set. And resources needed to deliver the program. Do you need any particular learning materials or specific tools or equipment to conduct the training? The reasons for conducting training could be any number of reasons. It could be things like refreshing or updating skills. So this would be the case for existing staff to make sure they continue to work at the desired level. It could be about developing new skills, maybe new workplace procedures or standards that have been introduced. Professional development, always an ongoing thing, so the ongoing staff development process. Vocational competencies, maybe it's a nationally recognised qualification, for example, doing TAE 40116, or maybe Cert 3 in hospitality. It could be related to legislative licensing and registration, and that could include things like work health safety, food safety, responsible service of alcohol, language literacy and numeracy, maybe for developing staff who have difficulties for a variety of reasons, or maybe corrective action. So this might be for somebody who's not performing at the desired level. It's important that we understand the needs of the learner. This will enable you to design training programs that are going to suit those needs. So what do they need to learn and why do they need to learn it? We need to make sure it suits the organisation's training needs. Are there specific skills and knowledge required by the employer? We need to cater to different skill levels, different skill needs. So this could relate to the subject or it could actually relate to the technology skills of the learner. Selecting a suitable training package, one that suits the needs of the learner as well as the needs of the organisation. What venue are we going to choose? Will it be a classroom or a job site? And we also need to tailor our training style. Your training style will vary according to whether you're dealing with entry-level employees or maybe more senior management personnel. Where would we get our students from? They come from a whole range of different areas or different reasons why they're training. They could be people already in the workforce. They may have time constraints or conflicting priorities. You could have school graduates who may have a limited knowledge of the working world. Maybe special target groups with specific training needs, for example, foundation skills or English language requirements. We may have experienced people who need refresher training, so they may be very experienced in their specific fields, just looking to update their skills. Apprentices or trainees, are they in the first year of their training or are they coming to the end of their learning contract? We have career changes. They're people who may be looking to change their career, go down a different pathway, look at future prospects. And we have the unemployed who may be trying to improve their job prospects. Next, we look at our key stakeholders. So who needs to be involved in the training? This includes anyone else who may need to be involved, somebody who has a vested interest in the training. The obvious first person would be the learner or the person being trained. You'd have their supervisor or manager. And that could be their line manager who needs to be aware of what training they're doing so they can support them and maybe provide work activities to support that training. The HR or the training manager, or any other organisational management. It could be the administration staff belonging to the RTO who may need to secure premises or venues for the training or prepare resources. Industry experts who will have up-to-date information about industry trends, as well as our trainers. Industry engagement is important to vet because training packages are developed in conjunction with industry to reflect the expectations of industry. So industry engagement ensures training and assessment is aligned to our current methods and best practice in industry, which assists in contextualising learning resources and assessments. Current technology, do we have the current equipment that we need or software programs used by industry? For example, does the financial industry prefer MYOB, Quicken, Xero, or a combination of all three? Any emerging trends? What are the current trends or skill requirements that are out there in industry at the moment? What's the future going to be? What are the short and long-term employment opportunities for our students? So the benefits of industry engagement ensures that the training is relevant to the employer or the industry. This also maximises the students' opportunities for employment, advancement or further education. It ensures the currency of our trainers and assessors, making sure they have the current skills to deliver training and to conduct assessment. It also enhances the reputation of the RTO, and this ensures that employers, industry and students have confidence in the qualifications issued by your RTO. For example, the integrity, currency and value of the qualification. There are a few design considerations we need to take into consideration. Things like LLN, access and equity, outcomes, contractual requirements, risk, and also a range of other considerations. Language literacy and numeracy. These skills are used throughout all areas of society, in every activity we do, personally, socially, and in our work. It's an essential part of vocational competence. As trainers, we need to help learners adapt to use their skills. And LLN skills vary dramatically according to job role. For example, accountants would need to have a very strong numeracy focus. Salespeople, they need to be good communicators to get that sale, and teachers, they do a lot of research and disseminate a lot of information to their students, so they would need strong language and literacy skills. So LLN must be considered, and allowances made wherever possible to allow all participants to have an equal opportunity to successfully complete the program. This is covered in detail in the LLN cluster. Access and equity. This refers to the ability to enter training and could include things like improving physical access to the training venue, ensuring that selection criteria does not discriminate against clients, and adapting marketing activities to encourage all clients. Equity is about ensuring that everybody has the opportunity to reach their potential, to make choices and receive responsive and appropriate products and services. In other words, the destination for all learners is the same, but the journey may be different. And we need to make sure that no one is discriminated against, regardless of the individual circumstances, their background or identity. It includes things like age, race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and disability. Expected outcomes and considerations. As there are many reasons for participating in training, so too will there be variances in the expected outcomes. So what will the participants be able to do? Is it a new skill or a more complex task? For example, make the perfect cup of coffee. Is it a qualification, a skill set, a single unit, or are they upskilling? The answer to this question has a big impact on your design planning, your content, your resources, and also your timing. How will they be assessed in their new task? Do you need to develop a formal assessment process or just a skill set at the end of the workshop? What will it look like? How will the program affect organisational productivity? How does the organisation expect to benefit? Do they get a more skilled, more productive workforce, more engaged staff? How will it impact on the participant's career path within the company? Will it lead to promotion, maybe higher pay, job satisfaction, or in the case of a performance issue, will it enable the employee to keep their job and rebuild their career? And lastly, how do you measure if the desired outcome has been achieved? What's the measurement going to look like? It needs to be clear right from the very start, no matter what it is. With contractual arrangements, our governments, both Commonwealth and states, have a range of training initiatives in place as part of the larger employment programs, usually in the form of funding. So this funding could include user choice for apprentices and trainees. It could also include funding for Cert 3 qualifications in all states, for example, Cert 3 Guarantee in Queensland, Smart and Skilled in New South Wales, as well as other high-level skills funding and a wide variety of other funding options which vary from state to state. Requirements for contractual arrangements can include things like individual training plans, reporting requirements, as well as supplier performance KPIs and funded programs such as WELL, which is the Workplace English Language and Literacy. It could also include relationships with the Australian Apprenticeship Support Networks and other bodies. So as trainers, we need to be aware of the length of the learning contract. So how much time does the learner have left on their contract? The time the learner needs to allocate to training. So how many hours a week or what period of time do they need to devote to training to meet their contractual requirements? Any workplace absences. So if a student is away from work for example, block training, if they've gone to TAFE or a private RTO to do their block training, you would need to be aware of that. And you'd also need to be aware of the training content that is required to be provided. So these all have an impact on the development of a learning pathway for the student. Other design considerations would be things like legal requirements, for example, licensing, which could be responsible service of alcohol, duty of care, which include work health safety, and anti-discrimination. Industry requirements could be codes of practice. For example, the Master Builders Association has strict guidelines in place on how members conduct their business. It could be standards such as hygiene standards and hospitality. Organisational requirements would include things like policies and procedures and also standards. Standards could be things like customer service standards in retail or hospitality. And lastly, we have the product specifications. So products and services. Trainers should have an in-depth and current knowledge of any products and services that they're going to be training in to make sure that the student receives the correct level of training. So as with any environment, there are risks in the learning environment. So when planning, training and assessment, there are a number of risks we need to consider. These could be things like work health and safety. Is the venue safe and secure? Is the environment safe? We'll cover some of this on the next slide. If we're missing participants, what happens if the student misses class? How do we ensure they catch up on their training? You may have venue issues. What do you do if the venue is unavailable? It's not appropriate, or maybe you have access issues for students with a disability. Equipment issues. What's your plan B if equipment is faulty or not available? For example, a projector, the projection equipment you plan to use is not working, or the piece of machinery you were planning to use is not available. So pre-planning and contingency planning are essential to ensure that training is delivered smoothly, efficiently and safely. So a number of things we need to be aware of in the learning environment, things like duty of care. So whether you're a trainer, coach or mentor, you're effectively a supervisor and therefore you have a duty of care to ensure that your learners are not exposed to any risk. Learners also have a duty of care to make sure that they behave and act safely. Every learning environment has potential risks. So as trainers, we need to make sure the learning environment is safe. For the purpose of the Work Health Safety Act 2011, the training environment, no matter where it is considered a workplace. You also need to identify any hazards or risk. The best way to do this is by starting with a simple inspection, looking for hazards. Have a walk around, check out the evacuation plan, access to and egress from the building, as well as understanding how to or who to report or discuss a hazard with. There are many hazards in the learning space, and these can be broken up into 6 main categories. Safety hazards are those that create unsafe working conditions. For example, exposed wires, rubbish left lying around, or damaged carpet, which may result in a tripping hazard. Ergonomic hazards are the result of physical factors that can result in musculoskeletal injuries. For example, having a poor workstation setup in the office, poor posture, and manual handling. Physical hazards are environmental factors that can harm an employee without necessarily touching them, and could include things like heights, noise, radiation, pressure. Biological hazards include things like viruses, bacteria, insects, and animals that can cause adverse health impacts. Chemical hazards are hazardous substances that can cause harm, and these hazards can result in both health and physical impacts, such as skin irritation, respiratory irritation, blindness, corrosion, explosions. And then we have psychosocial. These include those that have an adverse effect on an employee's mental health or well-being. For example, bullying or sexual harassment, victimisation, stress, and workplace violence. It's important that as a trainer, you're aware of your learning environment and the nature of your learners. Be prepared to adjust and modify training if necessary. Now we come to documentation of the training program. So documenting the training program formalises the training program, including all components that we've discussed, and they must include as much information as possible. They provide a blueprint for further programs. So once you set it up initially, you can adapt and add to it for other programs. It gives you an overview of how you're going to proceed in delivering and assessing your program. This is done using a training and assessment strategy, or a TAS, and it's also known in some RTOs as a learning and assessment strategy. The training and assessment strategy is a high-level view of the program which can cover a whole range of things, including the full qualification, a skill set, or a single unit of competency. And within this, it covers a whole range of different areas, including the qualification itself, whether it is a full qual or a unit, what units are included, the packaging rules for the qualification. It tells us about the target learner, what our methods of delivery and assessment are, and our timeframes for those methods of delivery and assessment. It also details our qualified trainers and assessors, what equipment and resources that we might require to be able to deliver and assess the program, any industry engagement that we've done, validation schedule, as well as pathways for further training. It is a living document, and it needs to be a living document. Your TAS needs to be kept up to date with any changes you make to delivery and assessment, as well as any changes to your training team. The TAS is required to enable us to plan and understand the program that you're going to be delivering. It's used for any additions to scope. If you wish to add any additional qualifications or units to your scope of registration, you will need a TAS. It's required as part of your application for registration for any new qualifications. It's also used in regulatory audits. So should ASQA or any other regulator wish to audit your RTO, they will ask you for this document first up. The development of the TAS is going to be covered in a separate video, so keep an eye open for that one. Another document we use is a training program proposal. Now, a training program proposal, it's like a business plan. It can help businesses and RTOs decide whether they should invest in a particular training program or not. It summarises the benefits to the RTO and the business. Investing in a training program can be expensive, therefore it needs to be determined whether it would be feasible or not prior to continuing. It also highlights the description of the training, including the length of the course, the location, schedule, and all those types of things. Once again, the development of the training program proposal is covered in a separate video. Key considerations for our training program proposal include things such as who are our clients. They could be our target learner group, individual learners or candidates for assessment, but they could also be commercial businesses, not-for-profit organisations, or government departments or agencies. Also, what are the client's needs? The individual needs to consider could be the industry or vocational focus of the training. The purpose for training and assessment, that is what skills or knowledge needs to be developed and why. The learner's career options and ambitions, any background or previous experience of formal learning, or do they have any existing skills, expertise or experience in this particular subject area? Are there any constraints on their time, or are there cost constraints or special needs? Has training been identified as a solution? And who are the other stakeholders involved? We also need to make sure that we select the correct training package to suit the learner. So that could be a full qualification, it could be a skill set, or it could be individual units of competency. Contextualisation. Do we need to contextualise the context of the assessment to a particular industry or work environment? And lastly, we have the location of training. So the venue, is it in close proximity to public transport if required? So in this presentation, we've covered a whole range of subjects. We looked at why we do the training, who we're doing the training for, the key stakeholders that might be involved in the process. We've looked at industry engagement, a range of different design considerations, the expected outcomes of the training. We've covered risk management, and we've also looked at the documentation, for example, the TAS and the training program proposal, which will be covered in separate videos. And lastly, we have some references and readings that may be of interest to you if you want to further your study in this subject area. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoy your training. Thanks.